Hey all, good afternoon. Last week on the video that I recorded, I talked about the discipline of fasting and the benefits that that has. I encourage you to listen to it if you have not already. But today I want to speak with you about another discipline, a discipline that, quite frankly, I find much more difficult than simply not eating for a period of time. And it's the discipline of silence, of quiet. We live, and you all know this, in a very noisy world. And I don't mean physically noisy, but a world in which there's always something going on. There's always something at our fingertips. There's always something that we have available to us. When we're in our cars, between XM radio and iHeartRadio and everything else, we can always have our favorite program, our favorite music, our favorite station on. Our phones, our TVs, we can always have access to the movies and the TV shows that we want to watch. We have available at our fingertips the games, the things that we want to do on our phone. And there's even a mindset in a lot of our jobs that we're supposed to be available 24/7. That if someone calls or if someone sends a text, that we need to be responding right away. And so we live with our devices very near us, and there's a constant background noise that is happening all the time. Now, the interesting thing is that studies have shown that noise is damaging. Physical noise, if you're exposed to it for a long period of time, actually causes problems physically in terms of mood and ability to sleep and fatigue. And the same thing is true as constant noise in our lives. It actually clutters up our mind. I call it mind clutter. It makes it difficult to think clearly. It actually damages creativity and does all kinds of negative things to us. And yet, it is so difficult to unplug. Scripture in a very famous verse says, "Be quiet, be still, and know that I am God." It's in the Psalms. It was something that was written by David. And I thought it was very interesting because what he's recommending is simply the practice of stopping, of putting ourselves in an environment where we're not distracted, where there's not something going on, where there's not something always in our way or clamoring for attention. So what does that look like? What does that look like in our culture? Because to be still means that we actually pull ourselves apart, pull ourselves away from those things that would actually distract us. That might mean our phone. It might be just being around our house with our to-do list and all the things that are clamoring for attention. It might be certain people that are always talking to us. It'll be different for each person, and most of you know what that looks like. But it's this withdrawing, this setting aside time where there's nothing else that interrupts. But being still isn't just about that. It's also about not necessarily having input. Like being still does not include necessarily reading a book or listening to a podcast or doing a Bible study. Those are good and useful activities, but being still is giving space to listen. Now, it's interesting that the second part of the verse says, "Be still and know that I am God," which kind of shows us the purpose of quiet and solitude. It actually puts God in his proper place and puts us in ours. It allows us to stop, to think, to consider who God is and the fact that he's in charge. It allows us to let all the concerns and the issues of life kind of bubble up to the surface, and then we can release them or at least put them aside. You might find if you take time to be quiet that at the beginning it's almost impossible. You'll be distracted. You can't go more than 15 seconds and your mind is going over this way or that way or it's racing and you're like, I don't even know how to be quiet. That itself is a sign that it is so needed in your life. So it takes practice. And I admit it's not one that I do well because I'm always wanting to do something, hear something, read something, listen to something, or play something. But when we do, and when we let God speak and we give ourselves that space, it's amazing what happens. Whenever that discipline has been active in my life, I find myself refreshed. I find myself with more creativity. Solutions come quicker. There's more energy to accomplish what needs to be accomplished. There's a new perspective on what's important and what's not. And I wonder that if each of us took 5 minutes or 10 minutes every day to simply be quiet, to be still, and to practice this discipline, we might actually get more done in less time and feel an awful lot more peace about our lives. So give it a try. Take some time over the next week, 5 minutes a day, to be still, be silent. Don't get frustrated if it doesn't work very well for you the first time. Keep at it. You might just find that 5 minutes turns into 10, which turns into 15, and who knows where we go from there. Until next week, love you all. See you then.